In our second video about the Excel movie lists, or the movie list in Excel, I should say, I have already started it by going ahead and adding some text in. And you'll see I've even colored the cells just to make it a little bit more obvious. So this is in cell D24. I've typed in the number of times, and then I've just copied and pasted it over and over and over again. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to have a sentence that sort of makes sense. So here you can see it says the number of times, and then there's a blank space, is in my list, and then there's the answer to what is the number of times that this thing is in my list. And so it's trying to sort of almost be English-like. In the English language, you would say it this way. And so is in my list, is cast in my list, directed in my list, or wrote in my list. If you have it phrased slightly different, that's not a problem. It's more just the idea that the first one is any name in my list for all of the names that are available is specific to the cast list, is specific to the directed, and is specific to the writers. And just in case you had forgotten, you should have 4 rows of cast, which are actors and actresses, 1 row of directors, and 1 row with the writing credits, which we could have easily called writers. And I'm just going to go back down again. So the number of times that a person's name is in my list. Now, you could copy and paste the person's name here, but it's much, much easier to just simply type an equal sign in your keyboard and then click on somebody's name. I'm going to click on Charlie Chaplin and then press enter on your keyboard. And just like that, it's automatically added. Now, again, it's just as easy for me just to say equals, and I could click on somebody else. Let's say I click on Jack Lemmon and press enter on my keyboard. And then it's just it's literally copying whatever the value is of that cell and putting it into the other one. I'm just going to change it back to Charlie Chaplin. So I type in equals, I click, as I said before, everything is backwards in Excel. So you select the cell where you want the information to go, then you type equals to let it know that it's a function you're doing, and then I'm going to click on Charles Chaplin or Charlie Chaplin and press enter. So now that cell is fixed, and if I go back and click on it, you can see up here is the code for that cell. So that cell is C20, and then is in my list. And so over here, I'm going to count all of the names, or I'm going to get the computer to look at all of the names and count all the times that Charles Chaplin appears in that list. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to say I want the answer to go here when we're done. I'm going to click the f of x button, and the function that we're looking for this time is called COUNTIF, COUNTIF, no spaces, and I'm going to click the go for search, and there it is right there, COUNTIF, and I'm going to say OK. And what immediately pops up is now there's 2 things. Now, remember when we did this with Max and there was like value 1 and value 2 and all that stuff, and as long as they were all values, it was no big deal. But now there's a range and a criteria. So the range is the area where we're looking, and the criteria is what we're looking for. So the range is the area where we're searching for how many times this thing appears, and then the criteria is how many times what. And so you're going to say whatever it is we want. So the criteria is actually the easier one. I'm going to do the criteria first because my criteria is whatever's in this cell. So I'm just going to make sure that the criteria is where it's flashing, and I'm going to click on that cell. You can see it automatically puts in E24. I could have typed in E24, but I just didn't feel like it. And so the range is where am I going to look for that? And for this one, I'm going to go right up to the top. So scroll up to the top. I'm going to start from cast number 1, dragging on down, and I'm going to go all the way over, and I'm going to include my writing credits. Goodness gracious, that jumped up very fast. And I'm going to include my writing credits all the way down, and I'm even going to include a blank line just to make sure that the computer's calculating it right. So for me and for you, this should now say C2 to H22. And then your criteria should be E24. For all of us, that function or that formula should be exactly the same. And you can see here it's giving an equals 3 because it thinks that 3 times does Charles Chaplin occur in this massive list that we just gave it. Okay? Oh goodness, I've just clicked and now it's all messed up. So now I'm going to have to go back and start all over again. So that's not what I wanted. So once again, I click in the range, something's gone wrong. So I'm going to click on Clint Eastwood and I'm going to drag all the way down to the bottom of the writing credits line. And I'm going to give it a blank space just to make sure. There's the answer 3 again, and I click OK. That was exciting. Okay, so that's just a quick and easy way to do this. Oh, I'm sorry that this is bouncing around so much. So the number of times, so the next one I'm going to search for, I'm just going to say equals, and this time I'm going to choose, let's choose Lucy Liu, sure. So how many times does she appear as cast in my list? So I'm going to use that COUNTIF function again. This time I don't have to search for it. It should be right at the top of my list. And I'm going to say, okay, yes, that's the one I want. My range this time is only cast because that's what I'm searching for in my, oh, apologies for that. That's what I'm searching for in my, so I'm going to go over to just under cast number 1, cast number 4, drag down, get an extra blank row just in case. And my criteria, if I can find it, is Lucy Liu. There's Lucy Liu right there hiding underneath behind. It says it's going to show up twice, and I click there, and it shows up twice. So remember the formula for this one, in this case, I was just D5. And then the formula for how many times she was cast in my list, so it's equals COUNTIF, oh goodness gracious, apologies, COUNTIF, and then the place where we're looking, so this C2 to F22 should be the same for everyone. And then, so that's the place where we're looking. You see it's now highlighted in blue. And then the E25 is the criteria cell that it's looking for. In this case, it's looking for Lucy Liu. And according to my list, she's in that list twice. Okay, so I'm just going to press escape to get out of that. Escape on your keyboard is in the top left-hand corner. And so then the next ones, you're only looking for a director, hopefully a director that shows up more than once, and you're only looking for someone who got writing credit hopefully more than once. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here, and then I'm going to come back to it, give you some time to think about that on your own, and then I'm going to come back to it later.